Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Visibility Sessions. I'm Dina Behrman and today I'm joined by Emma Gaskin, who is a public speaking coach. So thank you so much for joining me, Emma. And can you start by telling us more about what it is that you do, how you help your clients?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Emma Gaskin and I am a public speaking and voice coach. So I help female leaders to feel confident speaking, knowing how to speak and how to structure a speech, and then if they want to get on more stages and get paid to share their expertise.
And your career journey has seen you going from working as a speech therapist in the NHS to obviously working now with entrepreneurs and business owners. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, I worked in the NHS 10 years, so a decade of helping people specifically with stroke. So, people who've had brain injuries and need to learn to speak again, and also voice clinics as well. So, people who have physically lost their voice, have hoarse voices. I then I absolutely love the work as a speech therapist, but I found the NHS very prescriptive. So it was, you've had a stroke, this is what your problem is, this is how many sessions you get. And it
Mm.
doesn't encompass the whole person, even though you're encouraged to do sort of person-centered care, it doesn't encompass a whole person and their needs. And it was something that I'd not been happy with or felt that there was something else out there for me for quite a while. But actually, the reason I built my business was in 2023, I decided to leave a 10-year relationship 4 months before I was due to get married. And
Okay.
I took that money that I was due to get married with and I went on a retreat in Ibiza, and that's where my business was born. It was a business retreat, but there was yoga, it was all women, it was absolutely beautiful. And I just knew that I had this calling to help other women find their voice, especially because I felt I'd lost my voice in this particular relationship.
So, having done the work that you had done previously in the NHS, like how has that impacted the work that you do now on helping people to find their voice?
Well, everything.
Yeah.
In a sort of in a nutshell, I would say studying literally the science of speaking, that was my degree.
Mm.
Working with hundreds of people. When you work in the NHS, it's quite easy to rack up the amount of people you work with, and
Yeah, yeah.
seeing the patterns that people have time and time again when it comes to speaking. So first of all, the mechanics of how we make voice, how we speak, but also the psychology behind it. I work very closely with neuropsychologists, and I could have two people who'd had similar strokes, similar problems with their speaking. Maybe they could only say one word at a time. But one person, maybe with speech therapy, does really well and flies and is really motivated to speak. Somebody else, they're not as motivated to speak. Maybe they feel very low in themselves because of the stroke. Maybe they don't have the same motivation. They don't have the family to speak to, and they don't do as well. And that just shows it's not just a science, it's not just mechanical. There is definitely the mind body aspect to it as well. And so bringing that in to working with clients who are standing on stage, it makes a huge difference to how we address confidence and how I address and my method to getting people to speak up.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned confidence there because I think that's something that affects so many entrepreneurs, particularly women entrepreneurs that
Mhm.
are wanting to, whether it's speak on stage or do presentations. So, do you recommend people work on their confidence before speaking, or are there ways that you can start speaking more and that will help you to gain the confidence?
Yes, it's a little bit of a cycle. So if you don't feel confident in what you're speaking about, it's going to show. So for
Mm,
example, if you're like, I have all of this knowledge, I know what I want to say, I just don't know how to get it across. I don't know how to find the words. I don't know how to structure it. That's going to show up when you speak. But
mm,
for a lot of people, there is a deeper seated reason, and it's not actually that you fear speaking; it's that you fear being heard or
yeah.
being seen. So there's three common themes that I see with women, and men do get these as well, but they are more potent for women. And that is the fear of being seen and judged. What will people think of me? What if I get backlash? What if people don't agree with what I'm saying? That's the first one. The second is feeling like you don't belong in the room. Who am I to stand in a room and share what I have to know with other people? I'm not an expert. I'm not good enough. That's the second one. And then the third one is fear of failure and making mistakes. Like, what if I say something and I get it wrong? What if I say something and I offend somebody? What if I'm seen making a mistake? And most of the time, the things that clients share with me, the thoughts, the beliefs that hold them back with speaking, come down to those three themes.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really similar with the work that I do, because obviously just being visible in general, it brings up those fears when you're putting yourself out there and having to get your message across. What are the best ways to overcome those fears?
So really sort of, first of all, identifying it. So when I first started doing more speaking on more stages, I didn't think I had a visibility problem. I was like, I don't have a visibility problem. But I was also saying at the same time, oh, I don't want to speak on really big stages. I don't need that. But what it came down to was a fear of a mixture of the things I've just mentioned. So first of all, it's identifying it, because that's when people don't always relate to terms like necessarily visibility, right? But when you break down the thoughts that they're having, that's when then they start to think, oh, that's me, that's how I feel. So it is first of identifying it. When you think of whether it's standing on a stage of 500, if that's your next goal, just literally to telling somebody that they got your coffee order wrong, what are the thoughts and the feelings that are coming up for you? Work out which one of those it is. And you can start off really small, something like journaling on that particular thing. A really good prompt that I use with my clients is, who is benefiting from me staying small with my voice? What are
Such a good one.
what are the things I'm not saying? Another one is, if I knew that what I said was going to be accepted no matter what, how would I show up differently? So start to identify it, start to reflect on it. And there are small things that you can do. So I work with women who are already getting paid to speak, and they just want to elevate to the next level, or they want to get more gigs. And still those people there still have these thoughts that are holding them back to why they're struggling to get to the next level. And then I work with women who really are scared to use their voice at all. And I would say start small, like start with telling someone they got your coffee order wrong.
Yeah.
Telling someone, actually, I don't want to do that. I want to do this instead, or this would be a lot better for me, and this is why. So just start using your voice. And it is more difficult for us as women, but just start using your voice. And then as you get a bit more confident for those more advanced speakers, I'd be looking at how you're using your voice on stage. So in terms of nerves, like really getting grounded in being present in your body.
Yeah.
A lot of the time we're so busy up here thinking, what if they think this, or what if I mess up? You forget, like, be present in your body, acknowledge that you feel this way, and that will just make your head that little bit clearer. And my final piece of advice, especially for those more like advanced speakers, is use a pause. So it's great if you feel nervous as well, but people often speak very, very quickly.
Yeah.
After you have a good point, just count to 3 in your head. 1, 2, 3. Let it land. Let people really absorb what you're saying. And it will also give you a chance to take a breath, think about what you're saying, and just sort of breathe through those nerves.
Yeah, I think it's so common to just be so desperate to get the words out. A lot of people do that, where I've done that before, where you're just speaking so fast. And when you take that pause, it feels in your head like a really long time, doesn't it? It's like, oh, there's silence. But actually, like you say, it gives you that chance to kind of recalibrate and take a breath, and it makes the message land for the people listening. People definitely pay attention when you have that little pause there.
Exactly. So you're telling the audience, I'm confident enough here to stand and hold that pause. So that's really powerful. It gives them chance to absorb your message before you jump onto the next point. And just from a sort of physiology point of view, it gives you a chance to take a breath.
Yeah.
When we're nervous, our breath naturally becomes more shallow, and that signals to our brain that we're nervous, we're in danger, and that is then not going to help with the adrenaline situation. If you're taking good breaths, you sound more confident and you're signaling to your brain, I am safe. I deserve to be here. And again, that's going to reflect in your voice.
So you have a speak up method that you use with your clients. Can you just tell us briefly a bit more about what that involves?
Yeah, absolutely. So even though it's a 5-part framework, I don't necessarily start at stage 1 and then you work your way up. It really depends, but it's sort of 5 principles that you need to speak up. And that first one is what we've already talked about what is blocking your voice. So maybe you've already spoken on a couple of stages, maybe you've already done some workshops, but you want to do more. There will be something in your mind that is holding you back, and that's reflected in our voice. Like, even if you think about your voice block in your voice box, whether you believe in chakras or not, but your voice box, it's situated between your head and your heart. So it is literally the thing that so there's something here that is blocking you. You might say, I want more of this and that. So we start with that first. Now, for some people, they'll start and be like, I'm really confident. I just want more paid speaking gigs. So I'll start on that, but usually we dip into a little bit of this as well. And it becomes a bit more obvious later down the line. So the first bit is unblocking your voice. Then you're looking at delivery. So things like the power of the pause. Things like, are you using volume? Are you using speed? Like really being a speaker who is able to tap into these skills and be able to read a room. You know, people starting to get bored or disengaged. Okay, I'm going to pause and I'm going to ask somebody a question. Can you tap into that and do the human interrupt? And then you're looking at structure. And so the third part is structure and storytelling. How do you tell a story and how do you fit that into a talk? So it's not just all about you, it's about what the audience can take away. So I use a framework that's used in TED Talks and international keynotes. And then the fourth part is opportunities. So how do you then get paid to speak and get on more stages? And then the fifth part is sort of encompassing that and becoming what I call the siren speaker. So you're going to be like, what does she mean? So the reason I have a picture of Ariel behind me is because I talk about being the mermaid, the woman who gives her voice away, who apologizes, who says yes to things she doesn't really want to, isn't speaking up from the things she wants, to going to the siren who magnetizes opportunities with her voice. So we're not luring in sailors to their death like the mythical creature.
Yeah.
We're using our voice to use a ripple effect to get opportunities to us, and we've got these 5 or 4 different things that we use to get there.
I love that analogy, and I think you know the mermaid that's giving the voice away, and I think so many women, for whatever reason, do feel scared to speak up, and being empowered to feel confident enough to share their message is so important. So when you are working with clients who maybe are doing presentations or going into meetings and feeling nervous, what are some ways that they can help to overcome those nerves?
Big thing is definitely breathing.
Yeah.
Taking deep breaths. There's a few different exercises I do with different clients. Another one would be to focus on one thing that you're actually excited to talk about. So if I'm doing a workshop or a keynote or anything, I'd be like, there's this one thing that I can't wait to tell the audience because I know it's going to really help them.
Yeah.
And it shifts the focus from you to them. Because when you speak, it's not about you, it's about the people who are listening.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I do is something called tapping. So you may have heard of EFT, emotional freedom tapping, and it's used for like phobias and fears. But the kind of way I am trained in it is it's not just for regulating and healing your nervous system, it's expanding your nervous system so that you can hold more. So it might be, some people say to me, I'm fine on Zoom, but in person I get really nervous. Or I'm fine in front of a group of 30, but a stage of 200 is terrifying. So I have different tappings, recordings that I send to people, and then they can use that before the build up before and on the day as well. So some of it is the prep that you do before, And some of it is in those moments just before you start to speak as well. So what I've shared is more about the moments just before.
Yeah, that's so useful to have those things that you can actually do kind of in the moment, because I think, like you say, doing the prep beforehand makes you feel more confident anyway. And then it is just dealing with those nerves that come up when you're kind of in the moment. And I've used EFT before, and it is such a good tool to use. And just thinking about what you said before as well about bringing storytelling into the speaking that you're doing. And I know from a PR perspective, storytelling is such a big part of, you know, when clients are being interviewed, whether it's for a magazine or a podcast or radio show, storytelling is a huge part of that, because it really allows the audience to connect to what you're saying, because there's that resonance there, and, you know, helping them to identify with what you're saying. So often I speak to clients who say, I don't know what my story is, or I don't feel like I have a story. If someone's thinking that when they're wanting to do speaking, what would your advice to them be?
So I've actually had sessions with clients on exactly this, and I did a workshop, and it's in my featured section, that's just about this. So this is perfect. So often people say, like, I don't feel like my story is like interesting enough, or I don't have
Yeah.
anything to share. And
Yeah, or like not dramatic enough. I think we
Yes.
see online sometimes these stories like rags to riches, and it's like, well, if you don't have that, you know, what can you share that's interesting?
So I see sort of two parts to this. One, again, is that feeling of like, what I have is not enough. Who am I to share this? So there's tackling that, but then there's also just knowing that you have micro and like macro stories. So your macro
Yeah.
stories could be your origin story. So from like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, when you started to where you are now, and what you've learned in between. And then you can have micro stories like, what happened last week? What happened last month? Where were you 12 months ago? But the idea of stories is you're holding a mirror to the audience, and you want them to see themselves in you. So if you're telling, I told a story about when I won an award in December, and going up and feeling like, oh my gosh, like I don't feel good enough to be here, and working through that. And if, you know, somebody who's literally just speaking for a living, who helps people with this, still has this feeling, and saying to people, look, this is how I felt, but then I made a decision and a shift that I was going to work through it. And then this is what I did, and this is what you can do too. So it's also making sure that you've worked through it so you can demonstrate how you led yourself, so that you also build credibility. You have the vulnerability of, this is what happened, this is how I felt. Here's the shift. This is what I decided. Here's how I worked through it. Here's how you can too.
Yeah, I love that. And it feels very similar to the kind of storytelling that we use with PR, because there's that story arc where it's, you know, this is the challenge, this is the adversity part, and then this is working through that challenge, some kind of epiphany, some kind of light bulb moment, something like that, and then coming out the other side of it. And I think that once you have that grasp on what your story is, you can use it in so many areas of your business and your marketing, whether it is speaking, PR, whatever you're doing. So I think there's so much value to being able to understand what your story is, and like you say, having the origin story, the micro stories, because there are so many different types of stories. Just having the human experience, you know, and the journey that we're all on. So yeah, I love that you help people to do that. And one of the aspects that you help people with is getting paid to speak as well. Do you find that there are mindset issues that people have around the idea of being able to charge money to speak?
Yes, absolutely. And again, something I see more in women, because there are typically less women speakers in a lineup.
Yeah.
And looking at research, women are typically less paid
Yeah.
or paid less when it comes to speaking gigs, because we can be less likely to ask for more money, but also with childcaring responsibilities, we may be less likely to be able to get in a car and drive 2 hours to go to a paid speaking gig. So yes, definitely mindset. Again, who am I to charge this much? Am I expert enough? But yes, if you can speak about a subject, an expert isn't someone who knows everything about one subject. An expert is somebody who knows enough that they can help the person next to them.
Yeah.
And when you
Yeah.
realize that, you're like, oh, and there is a little bit of a thing of like expected to go and speak for free. And I advocate speaking for free when it works for you. I speak for free at times when I know that, maybe I'm going to get videos or photos out of it. Maybe it's in front of my ideal audience. It's aligned with my own values. But don't be afraid to ask, do you have a budget for this?
Yeah.
That's all you have to ask. And if they say no, you can then make the decision. But it can feel like, who am I to ask to be paid? But it takes hours to prepare a speech. It can take hours to get to the venue. Be prepared to ask, and also then people find it difficult to ask for more as well. And so it is really knowing your worth and feeling confident in your voice to ask the question.
Yeah. And like you say, just asking the question makes all the difference. And to have the confidence to do that could change that whole experience for you. And it is just one simple question. If people are watching this and they like the idea of moving more into public speaking and starting to speak on stage and get paid for speaking, what's something that they could do to get started with that? What's like an easy step that they could take just to get started?
Is this specifically for paid speaking or public speaking? Because I see it as two different things. Public speaking is like doing a presentation or going live. Paid speaking is a different part.
Yeah, or maybe you can give us a little tip for each of those.
Oh, yes. So if you want to get more into paid speaking, are you okay if I share something like a resource that I have myself?
Yeah, definitely.
I have a free resource called the beginner speaker kit, and it will literally tells you everything that you need to get paid. So it isn't just a matter of asking, it's also having the assets to back that up. So things like, do you have a bio that talks about who you are, why you are qualified to speak about it? So there's a number of assets that you need. So I would recommend that. It's a checklist. In there, there's also an email where you can sort of pitch to people and the things that you need to include in those assets. In terms of public speaking, I'm going to say, so if there's somebody who wants to speak up more at work, it would be some of the things that I've already said in terms of like, start off small, speaking up in meetings, sharing your opinion, and not being afraid to ask for those opportunities. Really thinking, yeah, I am worthy of doing this. Like, it's okay to ask somebody, like, I asked for a cappuccino and I got a latte. It's okay to ask for that. It's okay to speak up and just start small, and always remember the power of the pause. Because again, people are afraid of it. And it's so powerful. Also feel free to get in contact with me in terms of like hopping on a call and chatting. Like, I love speaking to people. This is something that I think is really removed in like coaching and business. It's like, no, you have to pay me. But like I do 5 a month where I hop on with calls with people, and you may decide, I don't want to do anything about it, but let's chat. Let's see what is holding you back. What is it that you want to help, like speaking to help you achieve? How can we get you there? What is it that you need to do to get to that next level?
I love that. So what is the best way for people to connect with you if they want to find out more about you and the work that you do?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, Emma Gaskin, but my LinkedIn is linkedin.com/the speaking hub. That's my company. And then on Instagram, I am Emma J for Jane Gaskin.
Amazing. And like you said, you've got your speaker kit resource as well. So we'll put a link to that in the comments. And I know you have like a few different free resources as well, don't you?
Yeah, and that's it. I do tend to work with two different kind of women almost. One is the woman who's maybe speaking opportunities are coming to her, but she doesn't feel quite confident to step up to them, or she wants to use her voice more. And then there's women on the other end who are like, well, I'm quite confident, I just want to get paid. And then there's women in between. So I have different things for different people.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, we will share a link for your website as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. That has been so helpful, and there's so many gems in there as well. And, things that we can start thinking about using, like you say, to get started with speaking, or just like elevating that speaking, taking it to the next level. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Bye.